Human habitation in Australia has a long history. The Aborigines, a general name given to a number of different societies, began to arrive on the continent over 40,000 years ago, possibly even earlier. They came from New Guinea, which was connected to Australia by a land bridge. There were between 350 and 750 native communities in Australia, each with its own language. There is another large group of indigenous people living in the north, called the Torres Strait Islanders. The term aborigine is not used for these as they are believed to have migrated from elsewhere and belong to a different race. William Janssen was the first European to discover Australia. While captaining the Dutch ship Duifken, he made landfall on the western side of Cape York Peninsula in Queensland. A British cartographer called James Cook reaches east coast of Australia, where it reaches Botany Bay. In 1788, Sydney, a British penal colony, was founded. Reports from Captain Cook and his crew about the encounters with the natives are enthusiastic about the friendliness. There was a sharp reversal feeling on the part of the British when Cook was killed by native, not in Australia but in Hawaii. As often happened, this incident led to the subjugation of the Aborigines in Australia. They did not realize that 90% of them would die due to germs, conflicts against settlers, as well as loss of land and resources. The experiment of settling Brazil with Portuguese convicts had been abandoned when the violent behavior provoked angry reprisals from the natives. The British had adopted the same practice in Australia. Most of the early settlers were convicts from Britain, and they were sent to Australia on the condition that they would not return back to Britain. To make new lives in this land which is different from their own, they ejected the natives out of this land and made home for themselves. Self-government was granted to Australian colonies. In 1901, formation of Federation of Australia with 6 states was founded, in which Canberra was declared as the capital. Economic development of Australia under European settlement was not as varied as in America. Many stations were established over a long period with much more labor followed by vineyards and wheat farming. Now let's discuss how Australia was racist to certain sections of society. Some natives were employed in farms under conditions so harsh which was little different from slavery. Later, Chinese immigrants provided cheap labor as in California, but uneasiness about being dependent on non-whites led to governments of both countries into banning them. In 1974, such was the popular fear that dark people from South Asia and Southeast Asia might migrate to Australia in large numbers, that there was a government policy to keep non-white people out.
Hello everyone, myself Georgie. Today I am going to do the seminar of the topic The Winds of Change in Australia. The phrase winds of change in Australia refers to the social, political and economic changes that led to the end of the white Australian policy. These changes also led to the recognition of native cultures and the adoption of multiculturalism as a national policy. In 1968, W.E.H. Stanner published a book entitled The Great Australian Silence that encouraged the Europeans to trace and understand the historical roots of the natives of Australia. Henry Reynolds, in his book Why Weren't We Told, criticized the tradition of writing of Australian history. According to the Europeans, the history of Australia began with its discovery by Captain Cook. He believed that the study of native culture and civilization must be encouraged. His ideas inspired the Europeans to know about the historical antecedents of the natives. Since then, university departments have been instituted to study native cultures. Galleries of native art have been added to the art galleries. Museums have been enlarged to incorporate dioramas and imaginatively designed rooms explaining native culture, and natives have begun writing their own life history. Here are some pictures of the native art. Multiculturalism. This policy was adopted in 1974 to recognize and respect all cultures, including native cultures. Judith Wright, an Australian writer, was a champion of the rights of the Australian Aborigines. She wrote many moving poems about the laws created by keeping the white people and the natives apart. The government had always termed the land of Australia terra nullius, that is, belonging to nobody. There was also a long and agonizing history of children of mixed blood, native Europeans, being forcibly captured and separated from their native relatives. Agitation around these questions led to inquiries and to two important decisions. 1. To recognize that the natives had strong historic bonds with the land which was sacred to them and which should be respected. 2. While past acts could not be undone, there should be a public apology for the injustice done to the children in an attempt to keep white and colored people apart. So that is the end of the seminar. Thank you for being here. Have a great day.